Hi, I am Wolf Van Halen. I've been with the Dario my whole life with Van Halen on bass. There's just nothing better. And I say it right, the Dario. Nobody f***ing says it right.
Kies. I'm at the end in Nashville at the end of the Chat Pile tour, or at least the first tour, first leg of the Cool World tour, right? Because It sounds like you guys are going to be busy next year. Yeah. This will be probably the most touring like we do in our lives, probably in the next couple of years. So, but yeah, this is the end of this first run, and then in February we kind of start back up on the West Coast and then do Europe and stuff like that. So. How's that been? I go back. Will that be your first time touring in Europe? So we've played in the UK a couple times. We played a couple one-off fests. We played Roadburn last year and Roskilde in Denmark. But this will be the first time we've done any like actual mainland European like touring and stuff. Fun. So I've never gotten to go overseas before being in a band. So like it's a treat. I'm getting to go to places I've never thought I'd be able to go to. So. Now, do you think that you'll be able to? This is probably an inside thing I picked up in one of your interviews. Is beast mode? You guys are, like about the treats and you guys pick up? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's a funny callback to an inside joke from like 5 tours ago. Yeah, but yeah, we are always like looking for good food and stuff, just because stuff like that. But no, I'm always. I don't know, especially like going to Italy and stuff like that. Man. I can't wait. You're gonna love it. We're touring with Agriculture, who are label mates of ours, and they did a part of this leg as well, the first half of it, and they just kept me. It's like, we're just gonna eat so well when we're over there, and it's gonna be great. Yeah, so. I got to go over there for my honeymoon. We did Greece and Italy, and it was awesome. I ate my way through the country. Yeah, it was fun. Can't wait. Yeah, you guys are gonna have a blast, and you get paid to travel. Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's not lost on me how like insane that this is our job. At least for now, this is our job right now. So it's pretty awesome. Was it true that at some point you guys were all working regular jobs? Oh yeah, until. April last year is when we went to Roadburn, I was still working my office job, and I thought I was going to be able to go, but then they were just like, you actually don't have enough vacation time. And it's like, so you have to make a choice. It's like, well, I wanted to try and save a little bit more money before going full time on this, but so yeah, we had to, make the plunge and do that. But yeah, I never thought that this would be possible at all to be able to do art or music full time. I just worked my office job and just played music for fun, and I'd kind of stopped playing guitar for a couple of years until Stin and I got kind of linked up and decided to maybe jam and stuff. So no, it's very crazy to me that this is what I do now. It's I can't believe it sometimes. I really enjoy the fact, and I really almost support you guys as a fan. That makes me want to fist pump or whatever it is. Where it's like. You guys are just regular dudes, and now you're getting to live out a dream that all of us that watch these shows or listen to your music could aspire to do. Yeah, it's a weird thing to say, but it's not even necessarily like it was my dream. I love playing music, but it's it was so beyond the possibility of no. My mom's a dog groomer. It's not. It's just I just never thought that this would even be possible. I thought I was just going to have a job that gives me health care and right. or and that's the pinnacle you can hope for me. I dropped out of high school. I don't have a college degree, so it's just
I just didn't expect this to be possible, really. So it's pretty awesome. So.
Well, everyone at Premier Guitar and the Rig Rundown team is definitely rooting for you guys. So continued success. But let's dive into why you're here.
Sure.
Or why I'm here, I should say. You're here to rock. I'm here to talk. Music Man Baritone. Now, this is the big thing that you've been playing for a while. But what was not the transition, but the lineage of how you got here? Let's back it up and talk about maybe the other instruments that you used maybe when you and Stin first started jamming.
Yeah, so I have a couple of guitars at home. I have like a Fender Strat. My first guitar ever was a Mexi Strat.
Okay.
That I still have at my house, but it's for E standard and stuff and drop D. But I had that, so that didn't really work for this. And I know that when we were first talking about jamming, we wanted to play lower tune. And Stin was playing in like the drop A kind of, baritone tuning, but drop to A. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really have a guitar that was good for that. And he had a T60 along with his T40 that he plays. And so I played on the T60 just for the first, a couple of years of the band. And then it was just a little floppy for me, just playing in that low of a tuning. I was having to use even bigger gauge strings than I'm using now, because I'm using like the Mammoth Slinkies now, which are like a 62 12 pack, which isn't too, it's heavy, but it's like, I was using like their jazz baritone ones, which are like, 70 something 14s. Like they're crazy. But yeah, so I was using the T60 for a while. And then when we went to the UK last year, the neck snapped in a flight, and it was in like the hard Peavey like molded case. So I don't know if they like took it out, and I don't know how it broke. It as a challenge. But we ended up putting an aluminum neck on that one. But I kind of just, I don't know, I had thought about maybe getting a 7-string, they just don't feel comfortable to me. It's like so much of it for me is muscle memory with any of this. I know it for like everyone, but like it was harder for me to try to have an extra string rather than just have the extended scale. And so I wanted to get a baritone guitar. I've been kind of like thinking about it, but a lot of baritones are either like gent guitars or like surf guitars kind of. So it's like, it's kind of two ends of the spectrum, and it's like, there's just not a lot out there for like, we use, other than the Quilter now, we use a lot of like vintage gear and stuff. And so it's like, I'm kind of not looking for metal tone. We get that from the tuning rather than like, the pedals I use.
Yeah, we'll get to there, but you're not
that.
Much going on.
Yeah, so it's, a lot of that stuff, I didn't want like, big active pickups. And so I don't know, I've always been like enamored with Music Man stuff and Ernie Ball stuff. And when I was just like kind of looking around online and saw that they had done like, this is one of their like BFR guitars, so like the ball.
Yeah, show that to the camera quick, just because it's like the sparkle.
It's very, I think it's called Starry Night is this finish. I have the tape on there right now. Shout outs to Richard from Agriculture for showing me the Eddie Van Halen trick of I kept getting my strings caught on the picks or on the pickups, so I have tape on it now. But so I just saw this online, and I typically like kind of gravitate to usually like either Silverburst or like black instruments. I usually don't like stuff too flashy, but I don't know, I really liked, it kind of looks like TV static to me a little bit. It has a nice like blue color to it, but it just, I don't know, it was kind of calling to me. I was like, it is kind of like a dentist guitar a little bit. But it's like, I don't know, it's really comfortable to play, and since, I'm playing in drop A, it works pretty well for it. And these pickups are definitely more voiced, like for kind of like more of a rock sound rather than a metal sound, which I think actually works for what we're going for. So I think if it was more metal focused, it wouldn't be as like, I don't know, warm sounding maybe. Or
with everything else you got, it works with that. Now, did you use the T60 with the metal neck for Cool World, or is this, okay?
So both. We track live, so like the 3 instrumentalists will play all together in the same room with like, there's like bleed and everything. So I did that. So all the main guitar parts are on this guitar. And then we don't really write, like I'm not writing 2 guitar parts because we want to be able to perform everything live without a second guitarist. So there's certain parts, that there's layering and stuff, but with that, I would use the aluminum neck T60. I did take it on tour with us to use as a backup, but it's just a backbreaker, and like the neck plus that body's already so heavy, and then adding, I got like a kind of it's like a chambered one, so it's like a lighter aluminum neck, and it's still like that thing's got to be 15 pounds plus.
What's your experience playing that?
It feels really nice, and like the sustain's really good. It sounds great. It's just, I don't know. I was also having some issue with like the highest string popping out of the nut a bit, and like it's just it sounds great, but it's kind of it's just a weapon, like it's just so heavy, like physically heavy, and like kind of difficult on my hands to play. So it's a great studio guitar, but it's not really a great like touring guitar.
Yeah.
You know. So I got a cheaper little. I have it in my box right here, but this brand Jericho they have like just like a wood neck through baritone that I bought like, I don't know, a month or two ago before we came, just to have as a backup.
Yeah,
and that's
something.
been great too. But
now you had covered that you had the Ernie Ball Slinkies. What were they again?
The Mammoth Slinkies are the ones that I use.
Yeah, and then you're in drop A all the time.
Yeah, so some of our songs are in B standard, so just in normal baritone tuning.
Okay.
And then there's one song on God's Country that's in drop G, so it's the same, but it's just, you know, tuned to the 9th fret or whatever. So it gives you that, like you can play the like kind of C shape like that and have the big open one. That's in the song Wicked Puppet Dance.
Okay.
But everything, I mean, every song on Cool World is in drop A though.
Nice.
But it's, you know, that wasn't really like a conscious thing, like that every song has to be drop A. It's just that was kind of the riffs that we wrote this time were all in the drop tuning instead of the standard tuning. But I know probably on the next record we'll mess around with B standard again, or I definitely want to write another song that has that low G as well, because weirdly my thought is just it'd be fun when we play Wicked Puppet Dance live to be able to go into another song without having to tune, and so it'd be cool just to write another one in that tuning.
Yeah,
so
almost like a challenge.
Yeah, you know, see if it works, just because a lot of it, you know, we want the live sound to match the studio sound, because like I said, we track live and record live, so you know, I want it to be able to translate and stuff, and like the live performance is very important to us. You know, it's just like it's a big part of it. So,
yeah. And that was recorded, and we'll talk to him in a minute, is in Stin's Jam Shack, right?
Yeah, we have a little studio out in the back of his place, and that's where he's our recording engineer. This new album's the first time we've had someone else mix it, but he still recorded the whole thing, and we did it the exact same process as last time, which is just, you know, we right there jamming, and you know, maybe, you know, he'll bring in a little riff, or I bring in a little riff, but it's usually like we're just jamming a bunch and figuring the songs out.
Yeah.
We're not the most prolific band, so it's good for our pace to be able to do it at home.
That's
just
true.
like work through it and
don't feel rushed.
And it's also like when we first started doing this, you know, we didn't ever think anyone would even listen to our band, so it's just like we didn't really want to spend money on a studio or anything.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's just do it at home through a Scarlett and an iMac, and that's just, you know, so the first EPs are all that, and you know, we finally upgraded and got a MacBook instead of an iMac, but it's still, you know, it's just, that's easier for our workflow, kind of, you know, just to like be able to spend a lot of time on just like working through songs for hours and stuff without having to be like, oh, we have to get this done right now because we're on the clock with studio time and stuff like that. So.
What's your favorite part of the process, whether it's recording, rehearsing, you know, coming up with new material, or you know, here in a few hours performing?
I love performing. There's just, I don't know. I think for me, honestly, just being in a room jamming with my friends is like always been the most fun I've had with music. That's just, that's the main way I've ever played music in my life. It's just been, you know, hanging out and, you know, just seeing if it sounds good, just trying to find stuff. So I like that. That's still how we write, and you know, it just works for me. So that's probably it. Just like it's this awesome. You know, we're all friends in the band. You know, Stin and Captain Ron are brothers, and so it's like, you know, it's great to be in a band with your best friends and, you know, hang out, and so that's usually it. But then I don't know, of course, being on stage and having people like say the lyrics back and be super into it. I mean, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I can't imagine, man. It's and kudos to you guys for just following it, and you know, so far so good in terms of like no compromises to what you guys, how you want to do it and what you want to do.
Yeah, we're just writing the songs we write. So I'm glad people like this new album. So, you know, that's just how it's going to be. So yeah.
Well, let's get back in the gear. Obviously, you got this one. We talked about the Jericho real quick, but Quilter. Now, tell me about how this is different than what you recorded with, because this isn't. I know that you might have used it, but.
Yeah, so
the normal
typically we use like a couple variations of like the old Ampeg V4. I think we use like the VT22, which actually this cab right here was the combo, and it caught on fire at a show in Portland. I think last year. And Ron, he's like a tech whiz, so he just like pulled it out and soldered in a new like 1/4 inch, and so now we just use it as a speaker cabinet. So, but this was like a combo that we used, so which is like a, you know, a 70s.
VT40, you said?
Yeah. But we've had like, you know, the V4 heads and stuff. So we usually in the studio use that. And then honestly, kind of my main amp these days in the studio is we have a Fender Super 6. So just like the, you know, a 6x10 twin reverb basically. it's insane. It is way too heavy to bring on tour. It's like so cumbersome, but it's awesome. I just really like that kind of vintage Fender sound.
Yeah.
I like amps with an amp reverb built in. I like to have a little bit.
It's clear in your music that you like reverb.
Yeah, I just like to have. It's like it's not the shoegazy thing, but I just don't really like dry tone.
Yeah.
I like to have some room sound in there, and just like even when we're doing the chuggy stuff, like my reverb on the Quilter even is set to like 3 out of 10, just to have a little bit of wetness throughout.
Now, what do you dig about the 10s? Because it's cool that you have the VT40, because that's actually something like Josh Homme from Stone Age.
That's kind of how the first like real amp head I bought when I was like 20 was a V4, and it was because of Homme and like Kurt Ballou and Converge, because they were all using like, it was also kind of in that time I was playing in like trying to do like Doom and sludge stuff, and like the Sun Model T, like that, it had already been like, I don't know how to put it, like they had gotten popular already. So I missed the boat on being able to get a cheap Model T, and so people were like, the V4 is kind of like the poor man's Model T, and it's like, I like it, I prefer it personally. Yeah, I mean, I know we could like get like a 412 or something, but I kind of just like, I'm kind of going for like an icier tone anyway, like it's kind of shrill on purpose, and I just like, and we do the same thing with the bass cab too, like he uses a 410, it's just, we like, we want low end, but we definitely want it to cut, kind of, especially live.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like it kind of has a bit more of that cut rather than just so boomy, that you could get if you're using like 12s or 15s or something. But also, I'm not like, and so that's all only use 410s. I mean, it's it sounds cool, but I'm always open to trying different stuff if but it just
now the tone block here, how have you had to EQ that differently to kind of match, because you're going for the record?
Yeah.
So how are you EQing that differently than maybe what you use in the Fender and the Ampeg?
I pretty much always, because again, I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not as like knowledgeable on what I'm even really looking for, but it is, I always just kind of set the bass on any amp. I use this like bass kind of
noon,
like in mids at noon, and just turn the treble up a little bit. It's kind of just like leaving it all pretty standard and just get a little bit more treble, a little bit of reverb, and that's just what I got. That's like the bass line, and usually what I go for. And it depends, it's live, it depends on the room. Sometimes if it's just like a boomier room, maybe I'll like turn the treble up a little more. If it's like sounding like crazy shrill to my ears, maybe I'll back it off a little bit. But that's pretty much it. It's just, I set it pretty standard and then just turn up the treble a tiny bit. That's kind of how I do it.
Well, how about, you played a big chunk of Shame for us on the way in on the intro there, but want to show us kind of your bass tone on the Quilter and the Baritone, and we'll go through your pedal board.
Sure, yeah. I mean, this is just standard, like, let me think of something to play that starts clean, maybe. We could do like Pamela off the first record, but it just has that, I'm kind of using these pedals, but so even with that the Quilter, it just has kind of, I don't know, it has that kind of more vintage sounding tube amp sound to me. But yeah, it just has that. Just that type of stuff. But again, I very rarely play with no pedals on at all. Like typically if my clean tone is no distortion with all my reverbs on.
Well, let's hit the reverb and
So it would be very like, like it sounds just like very like watery to me, and I just like that kind of feeling, and like it's kind of, especially with the settings I use on the Hall of Fame and the Memory Boy, it's kind of like drippy sounding to me, or like it's like
a chorus.
This Memory Boy has like a chorus setting on it, and that's kind of what I use it as. Like this is just with that on, but you can kind of hear that like weird kind of
the warble.
Like in Funny Man, that's one of our songs. It's like that. It's just that sound. And like whenever you get those like the stops, I just like the kind of the decay that it has. Sounds very cool to me. And so I just kind of end up using it as a chorus in that way, because it's I don't know, not as normal chorus sounding. It just kind of sounds a little more.
It sounds a little demented.
Yeah. It has kind of like a a dissonance to it, even though it's like just a chorus effect. But, which I'm kind of looking for. So
no, it's funny because people would associate your guys' music with noise rock, anything loud, abrasive. But what you bring to the table as the guitarist, a lot of what you're doing is that clean chorus or reverb or both together. You know what I mean? That juxtaposition of, what Ray Gun does and what Stin's doing, and obviously Captain Ron on the drums, is that it's not so much abrasive or aggressive guitar tone. It's almost that ominousness of it kind of luring you in versus sludge hammering you with like a drive on 10 all the time.
We're just like a very bass forward band anyway, so like I like to a lot of our songs start with that, and it's like, a lot of times the bass is carrying kind of, I don't say the melody, but like carrying the momentum of the song, and I'm kind of doing more like texture stuff over it, which I like to do because I'm not a very shreddy. I don't really even know my scales that well, so I'm just like, that works better for me, being able to just like find weird kind of textures and kind of like doing that more washed out stuff. That's the kind of stuff I like anyways, especially when trying to write stuff like this, kind of like the gothier sounds, like on the song Tape on this record. There's like, the kind of...
Yeah, let's hear that.
It's, I think it's just that, but it's like that. Messing with like, a little bit of dissonance and stuff in there, but I just kind of like, I don't know, that one was more going in like the Cocteau Twins kind of pure, just those very reverby, like almost like jazz chorus type sound stuff from the 80s. I like that type of stuff. So it's like we can mix some of that in with the drop A, super heavy stuff. It's kind of I don't know, it gives it kind of a unique sound a little bit.
Where do you think that you bring to the table in terms of the band's like influences? Because I think that was a cool conversation I've heard you guys have before. There's overlap, in the Venn diagram of the band where everyone kind of jams on something that you all like, but you do all four bring something separate to the table in terms of what you like listening to and what really gets you guys going individually.
Yeah, for me, I mean, for at least just like for pure guitar influences, like guitarists I like Justin Trosper from Unwound is like big for me. And also Luke LeMay from Gorguts, which they're very different bands, but it's like they both do kind of non-traditional stuff with guitar sometimes, or it's like, they'll play chords or play riffs, but like, I don't know, they're doing lots of, above the nut stuff, or like doing weird harmonics, or, hitting their guitar in different ways. And so stuff like that was always very appealing to me, just to like use the guitar in different ways, just because, again, I'm not like the most proficient player, so I think using it in as many different ways as I can figure out is like a fun way to do it. And so I kind of drawn more to guitarists that do stuff like that, rather than, I'm not really on YouTube watching people like shred and stuff. It's not really my thing.
But that is almost a strength though, because if you were a shredder, that's, that'd be a thing that you're always maybe going to. Whereas this is like how you're coloring with more space.
Yeah.
And there's notes in that too, you know what I mean? Like there's music in the space.
Yeah. I love bass guitar. Like, and so like, I really like, how bass forward we are. I mentioned that before, but it's like, it kind of, I always, I want the bass to be super loud and be able to feel it and stuff. So when it's like that, it kind of gives me space to do different stuff where, like I said, I don't really have to just like fully follow the riff, or I can do something different, and it just kind of works with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's for me, those two guys. I mean, I'm a big XTC fan, so Andy Partridge and David Gregory from that band, 70s and 80s, well, into the 90s, kind of new wave and pop group. But Andy's guitar playing is insane to me, very cool, and he does lots of stuff where he'll like, be singing along and matching up. He's like, it's like, I don't even know how he does it. And rubbing your head, he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And but they also just have a very kind of eclectic, they do lots of different stuff, all their records sound pretty different, and that's always been appealing to me too. Or it's like, I'm not saying that Cool World sounds like super different from God's Country, but I just like bands who are willing to try things, see if something sounds weird, or maybe, just do different random stuff to see if it works, this is appealing to me. But.
Well, aside from the tuner, we got one last pedal, and I think this brings the noise.
Yeah, so I have this Suhr Riot pedal, or I think it's pronounced Suhr.
Yeah,
Suhr. I've had this exact one since I was like 20. Same with this Hall of Fame. We bought like replacements for both of them, and I don't know if I'm just insane. I'm like, they sound different to me. So until these completely break, I'm probably just going to use these.
Go on a forum once and you'll see.
Yeah. This is because I know they did like a V2 of this one, of the Riot. Because they changed, there's like different voicing. There's like 3 different voicing switches or settings on, I should say. And I just used the middle one.
Okay.
But yeah, I used to like crank the distortion all the way up and stuff. But now it's not super high up. I mean, even with it on, it sounds like, you know. It's very
sounds great though.
Yeah. So I mean, you don't need a ton of distortion to get. I mean, this is a pretty high gain pedal, so it's like, you know, it's not like an HM2 or anything, but it's pretty, you know, like buzzy a bit, or, you know, fizzy a little bit in a way that I like though. But yeah, I just crank the tone knob. Again, I'm just looking for more treble kind of, because I like that kind of icy sound. So I just completely dime the tone knob on it, have the distortion at about, you know, 11 o'clock, and the level changes depending on like the stage, like the volume, because sometimes I'll need to turn that down a little bit. But that's kind of always my constant battle, is trying to balance the volume of this pedal with the volume of the clean tone that I have, just because it's like, I want it to be a bit of a step up when I turn this on. Like, I want it to be louder, but, you know, sometimes that can be hard with monitoring, where it's like, then I can't, when it's off, I can't actually hear the clean parts, because, you know, you have to go around the heavy thing. I know, like, probably a compressor could fix that, but, you know, I just have the 4 pedals.
Kind of like it, man.
Maybe one day I'll switch to something else. I've thought about, if anything gets replaced, it'll probably be the Hall of Fame, because I really only use the modulation setting on it. It has like 12 reverbs in it, different ones. I only use one thing on it, but also getting new gear, I'm just like, I don't know, is it going to be a waste of money? Or is it going to, like, every single chat pile thing basically has these 3 pedals on it, so it's like, I feel like it's a part of the sound now too, at least for this band, or it's like, I feel like it'd be noticeable if I got a different distortion, or if I were using.
But it could be different, like you know, you're always changing things up.
Yeah,
it could be the thing.
That's true. We at one point we bought a 5152, the Peavey.
Which is what people might assume you would have.
Yeah, and we tried it out, and we were playing at practice, and like the distortion channel, it was great. It sounded so good, but then I could just not get a usable clean tone out of it. That, like, it just, I don't know, it just did not give me the kind of that vintage, or the 70s sounding tone that I wanted out of it. It was just a little too hot for me and stuff like that. So yeah, that was one where it's like, we try, like, maybe we'll switch to using that, because I had it in my head, like, it'd be really nice to just use a channel switcher for the amp and just use amp, you know, distortion, rather than having to rely on pedals. But I'm kind of set in my ways with that stuff a little bit, where it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I bought most of these. The Memory Boy is from Stin or from Ron, but, you know, this tuner and the Riot and the Hall of Fame I've had for 15 years. Yeah. So it's just the stuff I have, you know. So.
Well, Luther, I appreciate. We're gonna talk to Stin, but I appreciate
continued
success and have fun in Europe, man.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I'm John.
Chris.
And I'm Barry.
And this is the Rig Rundown team, and we're sponsored by
Dario.
Actually, I think it's pronounced Dario.
It's Dario, but no matter how you say it, we know it stands for quality. Here we are now with bass player Stin. Stin, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Real good, man. I know it's the end of the tour, so thank you for jamming us in before you guys head back home.
Of course, happy to be here.
Yeah, and so let's dive right in. You got the PVT40.
Yes.
How did you land on that, of all the basses you could have?
That's a good question. I, started playing music when I was a teenager, and then kind of actually fell out of love with it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when I was in my early 20s, I had a friend who convinced me to start jamming with him, and he had a PVT40, and I was like, well, can I just borrow your bass?
Yeah.
And started playing. I was like, damn, that's like the heaviest sounding bass I've ever heard in my life. So I had to have my own.
So I would literally like travel around all these small towns in Oklahoma, going to like these independent music stores trying to find like a cheap T40 just randomly. And one day I did, and it was on the back walls, like a total Wayne's World moment, you know, where you see the guitar you want. Yeah. And I pick it up, I take it to the front, and lo and behold, there's like a picture of some local country guy playing this very T40, and I guess he was some local legend, and he had died, and they put his bass up for sale in the store, and I got it. So,
nice.
Yeah, and this is what I've had probably since 2007 or so, I think.
Yeah, man. It's you don't see too many of these in the wild, and if you do, it's typically more the T60, which I heard that you also had.
Yes.
That you borrowed to Luther.
Yeah.
Now, the pickups, is that kind of like where you think the mojo comes from in terms of like the being gnarly?
I do. So famously, these have like the craziest like pickup system.
Yeah.
So I play everything just completely open on the bridge, single coil. So I want it as hot and clangy as I can get it, basically. Yeah. But you can fiddle around with it, and basically, if you sort of like put the tone in the half position, it becomes a humbucker.
Okay.
And you can, you know, so it's real versatile if you want it to be that way. I'm not using any versatility. I have one setting and will for the rest of my life, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, are you always playing with the pick, or is it kind of a hybrid?
I can't play with my fingers. I can barely play bass in general, so pick gives me an advantage, and I'm going for attack. That's like the whole thing. So I need a pick for that for sure.
And obviously drop A, or at least A tuning for bass.
Yeah, well, you know, actually, I kind of prefer being a B standard. Like, I can write a little easier in that, but we just tend to play everything in drop A. So that's like, I would say 89% of Chat Pile songs are in drop A,
Yeah. Now, I asked Luther this question. What's your favorite part of being in the band? Is it the writing, the recording process, the rehearsing of getting new material, or, you know, jamming on stage?
I like writing. Honestly, it's kind of my favorite thing. There's just something really satisfying about like having sort of a seed of an idea in your head and then like seeing it through to the very end and having it come to life. There's just something really satisfying about that to me. So as much as I love playing live, and I really do like playing live, I can't, like, usually when we're in this process, all I can think about is like getting back into the studio and like writing music again. So
yeah, are you guys, you know, this has been a fairly decent run in terms of length. Are you able to come up with ideas, or is it kind of like that's reserved for the jam shack?
Oh yeah, hell no, dude. When we're on the road, all I can think about is like where we're gonna eat next or whatever, you know. So no, yeah, I definitely need to like carve time separately to work on that. And usually, like with me, I'll write riffs, record them, kind of bank them all up, and then I'll just take the ones I like the most and take them to the guys, and we'll hammer it out until it becomes a song, you know.
Now tell me a little bit about the recording process, or maybe more specifically recording setup that you guys have, because you're the engineer.
Yeah.
So it started out very crudely. It was just some Suhr mics and a Scarlett, right?
Yeah, it's still pretty much the same exact thing.
Okay.
So like we don't have any preamp. I mean, I know there are things that would exist that would make our stuff sound better, but I wouldn't really know how to utilize that very well. You know, it's like, you know, you can put a tool in somebody's hand, but if they don't know what to do with it, it's kind of useless. So yeah, pretty much what we're doing is we've got a 4-channel Scarlett, and then a laptop, and a couple $200 mics, and then the drums are all actually like they're E-drums. So Ron's playing them live in the room with us, and what you hear is him actually playing, but it's not like a ambient sound. It's all MIDI being triggered into the directly into the laptop, and then we can kind of affect that and make it sound cool. So.
How is there, I don't want to say a learning curve, but is there an adjustment period to that? You know, or at least maybe coming on stage and hear, you know, a real kit?
Yeah. You know, not really, because you know, we tend to play at such a loud stage volume. It just sort of sounds like blown out Chat Pile records anyway, you know. So no, not really. And I even think there's probably a reality that exists where we can get sort of the Chat Pile sound that we have and still record with a acoustic kit. I don't really know how that would happen, but I just feel like with the right amount of compression and stuff, you could basically, you know, make it sound like it's fake.
Yeah. Now you had, he alluded to Greenberg mixing that record, the new record, Cool World. Now, was that, I don't want to say apprehensive, but was there a worry or concern, or was it you guys are ready for someone to get their hands on it?
Yeah, I was definitely worried, and not because I didn't think Ben didn't know what he was doing or anything. It was just really more like, hey, people seem to really like what we're doing up to this point, and part of what they like is probably the sort of outsider art, kind of amateur sound that we have on our records. And so I was worried that if we had somebody come in who knows what they're doing, maybe some of that would get washed away and we would lose some of the charm that we have. But, I talked to Ben about it before we started working, and he totally understood that element of it. And, he basically offered to do a song for free just to see, like, hey, here's what I envision. And he brought it back to us, and I would say it was like 95% there, very few notes. So he, right out of the gate, kind of knew what to do with it. And then I was like, yes, please, Ben, please get mixing the absolute worst part of any, part of being a musician out of my hair. I would love for you to have to worry about this and not me. So,
man, I think, and it's, this is just my interpretation of what I hear when I listen to your guys' music, is the energy of the three of you, and obviously Raygun singing later, but in the core of what you guys are doing, crudely or amateurly, is represented through the energy that's captured, whether it's done professionally or what you're doing in the jam shack. But it's the energy, and it comes through. So it still comes through on Cool World too. That's where I think that's a hallmark of what what I would say a Chat Pile sound is.
Yeah, well, and I think something that kind of helps keep that is we recorded Cool World the exact same way that we've done all the other records, which is just like out in the, I've got this little unattached apartment in my backyard that we've turned into like a practice space, studio, all that. The three instrumentalists just hammer out the song over and over until we actually get it in one live take. And then then we'll throw some guitar overdubs over just to thicken it up or whatever, but that's it. So like what you're hearing on the record is us actually playing live together. So that's why the tempo swings around and why things are a little imperfect and all that, it's because it's literally just us doing it.
But it's like an organism versus being something that's on a train track, like a metronome.
Oh yeah, and I think that's like, lifelong heavy music fan, and I've got to say, like, recordings of the last 20, 25 years or so, there's so much boring heavy music out there, and I blame most of it on just how recording processes have changed. It's like everything's quantized, everything's so sterile and clean, and it just takes all the humanity out of what to me is a very human form of music. So it's like, it's funny because our recordings sound like absolute shit in a fidelity sense, but I think they are better than 90% of metal records you hear because it just sounds like people playing music.
There's a certain type of, I don't want to say romanticism that comes with the idea of this is the band, captured that moment, that idea by playing together, and this is what it is. And you might hear a door, you might hear a missed note on a guitar, but it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's just sort of like what you want is that human connection, and like you're missing all that when you have a computer clean everything up for you, or you're like, or if it's just a guy like, hammering out, a 3-second clip of a riff or whatever, trying to get it perfect, and then it all being stitched together. It just, I don't know, it just loses all its soul, you know? So, you want a little bit, you want some of those flaws on there. You want the gas to get stepped on and lit on and all that kind of thing, So
now, you're also, I don't want to say the band photographer, but a lot of what is represented on the album covers is photos you've taken.
Yes.
And is that something that you've always kind of, not to say saw yourself as, but it was just something you're like, hey, I got these cool photos, we could make this work?
No, I never thought of myself as like a photographer or anything. It's just, it's really just kind of a, what is it? Necessity is the mother of all invention or whatever. It's kind of one of those things, just like, well, no one else is going to take these pictures, so I guess I'll go out and do it.
Now, are you going out and with the idea of with like Cool World or God's Country and have the exact location of where that is in Oklahoma, and like that's the shot, or is it more going through your library?
It's kind of it's a combination. It's sort of like when I'm driving around the city just living life or whatever, I'll take mental notes of like, hey, that's a pretty crazy thing to be seeing every single day. Maybe I should go take a picture of that. But I don't think we don't always say like, oh, hey, this album's about XYZ, we should go take a picture of this. It's kind of more like I go out, take a ton of photos around the city, and then we pick the ones that seem to kind of like, represent the album the best.
We're on the separate edges of the plains. I'm originally from Iowa. So like the imagery that's represented in your guys' not only music in the stories you tell, but also kind of just the whole aura of the band, and then obviously through the image on the actual, literally on the cover, reminds me of what I felt like growing up in Iowa and the things I saw, because like coming through, going back home, midway through Illinois. I want to say it's Effingham is a huge cross. Just looks like a cool world. So
well, even just coming in from North Carolina, we saw 2 or 3 of them just like coming
literally
down,
out by Crossville, off on 40.
Yeah. Well, Crossville, there you go.
Yeah, which is funny because it's not actually in Crossville. The cross is in Cookville. Figure that one out. Yeah. But it reminds me of home hearing your music, and then also it's in a very dark, desolate way. But it's beautiful because it reminds me of my family and friends.
Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. It's like weird. There's a moment that I reference sometimes. There's a documentary about R. Crumb, the cartoonist.
Okay.
And he has a section where he's kind of talking about what a very important part of his style is trying to capture the sort of like ugly liminal things that are all around us at any given time that you just sort of tune out because it's just there all the time. And your brain just doesn't even have time to process it, right? But if you really stick and like think about your surroundings, if you think about your surroundings in, America especially, crumbling infrastructure, car culture, all that kind of stuff, you realize that like everything around you is kind of like broken down, and ugly. And so like I think what we're trying to do is sort of capture that essence and kind of put it in your face a little bit more,
Yeah, well, it's in my face. Yeah. But I appreciate it. It's in my face and in my ears. But let's get back to the gear talk. I heard earlier we were talking before cameras were set up, is that you were kind of the one that drove Luther and yourself into the Quilter land, right?
Yeah.
Now, how did that happen? Because obviously, again, I know that he didn't record with it necessarily, and there were some overdubs, but now you're bringing this little carry-on as your amp.
Well, it all comes just from a place of pragmatism, Like I manage the band as well, so I'm always trying to look for ways to kind of make life easier in that way. And, the first real tour we ever did was like a 6 or 7 show run with Lingua Ignota, and we didn't really know what we were doing all that well, so we bring all this like vintage gear and stuff, and like Luther was saying earlier, like the Ampeg literally caught on fire in the first show. We're like playing and we can hear it get quiet and we can smell stuff, and I look behind me and I see smoke coming out of it and I like turn it off real quick. And then we had 2 amps on stage. We had that one and then we had the Super 6 that he mentioned earlier, and as we're carting it out, 2 tubes fall out and shatter. This is on the first show.
Wow.
So we're like, maybe taking vintage amps, clear across the country, like isn't the mode. So then, we started kind of talking to people like, hey, what's the solution here? And Quilter kept coming up. And then, we saw the Grasshopper Lies Heavy in Oklahoma City one day. And we're like, man, these guys have killer tone, and if it's good enough for them, it's definitely good enough for us. So, now it's just kind of the practical tour amp. And I'm telling you, like, what I love about it more than anything is that every time you press the power button, it turns on and sound comes out. Yeah, exactly. So A+ on that.
Both. It's almost identical in terms of that Quilters. I know that Nate Newton from Converge and Caven was using orange tube head, but he also had the bass block as a backup, and then Kurt was actually using what Luther's using.
Yeah.
So
it's great. The one quirk to it to me is like at my home rig, I just have a Sun Coliseum Slave, and it literally has one knob. It's just a power knob or volume knob. And with the Rusty Box, running it through just that neutral sound, it's like perfect. It doesn't need any modeling or anything. But for whatever reason with the Quilter, I have to crank the low end all the way out and even boost the, I had to scoop it a little bit. For whatever reason, I have to scoop it to get the same sound as just my neutral. Like, I can't just set everything to 12 and go, but it still gets the job done. So
now is the Trace Elliott something that was used for recording?
So everything chat pile you've ever heard on recording has been done through this Trace Elliott, and it's all cab mics too. Like, there's no DI on any of those records at all. It's all cab sound. And
is there a reason for no DI?
Mainly because I don't know how to do it very well. I've tried different ways. Like, for instance, the Rusty Box has a line out on it, and anytime I've ever used it, it sounds insane. Like, it does not sound like music coming out of it. So I was just like, you know what? It's just easier to throw a mic up in there and like do it that way. And the other thing too is I only have 4 channels on the Scarlett, so I gotta pick and choose, and I pick cab sound.
Well, speaking of cab sound, can we hear kind of what you're working with and the different sounds?
Yeah, I mean, so there's one sound. This is my setting.
Oh, so there's no we'll say quieter settings or
nope.
AV?
I run it exactly like this for every song through the entire show. Yeah, there's just. And obviously what I'm going for is I want attack, like pure attack. I want it to cut you in the face with every pick hit, you know, through. Because I don't know, I love bass as like a percussive instrument. You know, obviously it has the low end that it needs, you know, to hold everything down, but I really want to be like a percussive player and kind of add to that element. So every time I hit it, I want the audience to be able to hear it and have it cut through. So
now, with your brother playing drums, what's that type of, I don't want to say synergy, but there's got to be something there that you probably played together, and you know, there's, you know.
Well, he's like pretty much the literal only drummer I've ever played with, like my whole life.
So there's something there to that. I'm sure. What do you enjoy having that as, you know, that connection you have with your brother and playing with him?
I feel like I can kind of predict what he's going to be doing, especially like on the kick, and I try to play along to the kick like the whole time. And really locking that in. And what I really appreciate about Ron's style is that it's not like overly flashy at all. I mean, I have jammed with people before who, you know, can get all jazzy and stuff, and it's not what I like. I like Phil Rudd style driving forward drum beats.
Locomotion. Or locomotive.
I just want to move forward. I want to drive the song. That's like what's important to me, and I think Ron is really good about tapping into that. And I just really, for me, it's just locking into what the kick pedal's doing, you know. So.
No, I talked to Luther about this. I'll throw it to you. Is like he asked him about what like influences that he brings to the band that maybe the other guys aren't well represented in, or maybe that's not their forte. Is like, so what would you say you bring to the table musically or in terms of influences?
I mean, I don't know. It's like we all have such like varied music taste. I almost feel like that is a bigger influence than even just like our individual tastes and stuff. But I do think for me, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, it's like it's just all about the drive. Like I like simplicity. I think you know, trying to fit in a million notes into one riff, or you know, I don't know. I think you can make an excellent riff with one note. You know, like, and so that's really what I try to bring to the table. Part of it again is that pragmatism. Like, I'm not that great of a player, so you're not going to see me doing anything flashy. But I'm anytime things start getting a little too proggy or a little too, I like to rein it back in and make it a little dumber.
Now, are there any bass players that come to mind that do that you kind of?
You know, well, what's funny, you know, Dave Sims from the Jesus Lizard obviously is like a big one for me. You know. But obviously, I'm a huge Korn fan, so
that's right.
I
Which
love.
Kind of gives the nu-metal.
Yes, exactly, and like kind of the bouncy riffs and stuff, and also the attack on the in the tone. It's
like Funny Man's kind of.
Oh, that's our corniest song, like straight up. That like there's no doubt.
Can you play that?
Yeah. Well, I got a tune,
but so Fieldy's your guy. Or at least one of the guys.
Oh, yeah. And then Chris Squire from Yes is another one that I really love, too.
But you said you don't like prog that goes out
there.
No,
I see. I do love prog, but I don't want to play it.
Gotcha. Got it.
But, you know, even in the world of prog, though, I think Chris Squire has a very, like to the point style, you know? You know what I mean?
Well, because there's so much going on in Yes music.
And exactly. And he's, to me, he's like almost like the real steady force of it. You know, it's like the thing you can hang on to. That's
he's
not.
The spine.
Yeah. So Funny Man. So it actually started with like the Korn riff, basically the breakdown riff, which is oh wait, I'm doing the wrong one. It's And then we added on this riff. Let's see. When everyone's not playing, I have to say like, how it
goes. I totally get that.
And part of what really brings like the Korn element is all the chromatics that are in it. You know, you have the, and then the. You know,
dude,
that's what people don't realize. Like that's like the big Korn secret weapon is like just chromatic riffing shit.
Is there a point where Korn jumped the shark for you?
Well, you know, as a lifelong fan,
as a listener,
there are eras that are better than others for sure, and you know, but jumping the shark is like I don't love using that term because I feel like even the stuff that isn't incredible has something to love about it, and the fact that they have such a big catalog and there's many flaws in it adds to what makes it kind of interesting and complicated, you know. So yeah, but to I guess give you a real answer, I do think See You on the Other Side is their worst album.
Okay.
And that's kind of like where things really start getting kind of squirrely.
So I grew up in that era, so for me it would be self-titled. Follow Leader is kind of the core Chris junior high school guy.
Yeah.
That's definitely I would say around 2000. At least not Korn, but like nu-metal kind of went.
Oh yeah,
weird
well
for me.
I don't nu-metal in general is bad. I don't claim to like nu-metal at all. Korn is just like the one, but and then like Deftones.
What about
obviously.
Deftones?
And then like early Slipknot maybe.
Yeah.
I mean there's stuff here and there, but like as like a big broad genre, no, it's no good.
Yeah, no. I feel like we've just touched on the ones that are worth knowing. In terms of that genre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Stin, and as well for Luther to talk to us quickly about gear, but maybe not that quickly, but I really appreciate your guys' time.
Thanks for talking to us.
Continued success, man. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Dude, thank you so much. And we really appreciate it. What a cool opportunity. Thank you.
Well, hell yeah. From myself and the Tone Lords of Chat Pile, I'll see you guys next time.
Right now, yeah,